Now in reopening, we have to actually double down on our diligence. Business owners, employers that are reopening, like we see here today, provide the right equipment, have employees socially distanced, store owners have responsibility, employees themselves have responsibility, each one of us as an individual has responsibility, and the local governments have a responsibility to make sure their Department of Health is out and making sure things are working well. Well, we're reopening, we're out of the woods, everything is fine. No. Reopening is actually much harder than closing. Closing was abrupt and disruptive, but it was simple. Everything is closed. Reopening is more delicate and more nuanced. And if you look at the states and the countries that have been reopening, more of them have gotten into trouble than not. And as we sit here today, states are getting into trouble. Newspapers will tell you more than a dozen states are now seeing increases. Texas, 36% increase since Memorial Day. Reopen, reopen, reopen. Be careful, be careful, be careful. California, the cases are still going up. Florida, the cases are going up. Look at those curves around the nation. Why? Because if you just reopen, if you just increase activity, the virus spread is going to go up compared to the virus spread when you were closed. That is common sense. Well, we want to reopen. Okay, but you have to reopen smartly and safely and intelligently. Otherwise, you will see the increase, especially in a place like New York City. With that density, people on sidewalks, people on buses, people in subway cars, it has to be done right. And we have to stay disciplined. And the evidence is all around us. What happens if we're not? Going forward, we need to do two things simultaneously. Number one, monitor the reopening, what we've just been talking about. Watch the numbers, be smart, be diligent. And second, let's energize the reopening. Let's set the bar a little higher. Let's not just reopen, but let's have an affirmative strategy that re-energizes the opening. How do you do that? Stimulate the economy. Now is the time to do large-scale development projects. Now is the time you want to see government investing, the private sector investing in building large-scale developments that you know can help drive economic growth. And you actually have an opportunity. Well, everything is closed down, there's less activity, there's less volume. Great, great on one level. If there's less activity, then we can actually build more aggressively because there's less disruption. It's what LaGuardia Partners and Port Authority was smart enough to do right here. Well, there's less traffic at the airport. That's a problem on one level, obviously. On another level, it's an advantage. There's less traffic, there's fewer cars. Well, now's the time to advance the roadway construction because there are fewer cars and there is less traffic. Because remember, what this reopening is about for us, many of the other states, they're just reopening. Our goal is not just to reopen. Our goal is to stimulate this economy, to take this moment of pause as a moment to pivot and stimulate and regrow better than before. After everything we've been through, my goal is not just to reopen. It's not to go back where we were the day before the pandemic. Life is never about going backwards. Life is about going forwards. How do we learn? How do we grow? How do we take this moment? We were on pause, we reflected, we dealt with a crisis that we've never dealt with before, and now we're stronger, and now we're smarter, and now we're better, and now we're going to come back more revitalized than ever before. Take these large-scale developments, accelerate them, On Long Island, we're transforming Belmont. It's going to be a new Islanders arena, $2.7 billion in economic activity. Now is the time to double down. The MTA, there's less ridership. Ridership was down at 1.92%. That's bad for many reasons. It's also good for many reasons. Now is the time to accelerate the capital construction in the MTA, because you can take trains out of service and you can disrupt fewer riders. So the MTA is accelerating $2 billion in capital construction. Fix the tracks now, fix the tunnels now, fix the platforms now. When the MTA, people get back on the subways and the commuter rail, they're going to be surprised. Those trains are cleaner than they have ever been in my lifetime. Those stations are cleaner than they have ever been in my lifetime. We are now disinfecting subway cars. Look, this is a situation where the MTA couldn't figure out how to get homeless people out of the subways for decades, let alone get newspapers and coffee cups and garbage out of the cars. The cars are now disinfected. Homeless are getting services they need, and they're no longer living in a subway system. Yes, we went through hell, but it's actually going to be better when we reopen. Upstate airports, which many of them haven't been redone in decades, now is the time to do it. And LaGuardia Airport, now is the time to actually double down on our commitment and our effort. LaGuardia Airport is going to be the first new airport in the United States of America in 25 years. Just think about that. 25 years. Last airport was Denver, 1995. This nation hasn't figured out how to build an airport. Why? It was too big, too complicated, too confusing. So we just didn't do it. Meanwhile, countries all around the world did it. And you could fly into airports all around the world, and they were brand new, and they were entertainment centers and business centers, and they were magnificent. And then you'd fly into our airports here in the United States, which were built in the 50s or the 60s or the 40s. And it was just so apparent how other nations were outpacing us. Who is going to change that? Who is going to lead? New York. And that's what LaGuardia Airport is all about. Don't tell me we can't. We can. And by the way, we are. We are. And we're doing it at LaGuardia, which was challenging. This is not just a new airport. This is build a new airport while you're operating the old airport, right? This is renovate your home while you're living in the home. Operate the airport and build a new airport at the same time. And by the way, you're doing it on one of the smallest pieces of land of any airport in the country. This parcel is a veritable postage stamp compared to what most airports have. On that postage stamp, operate the airport without undue encumbrances and build a new airport at the same time. You know how many people said it couldn't be done? Dozens and dozens and dozens. You know who said it could be done? LaGuardia Partners and Rick Cotton. And they were right. And we're here today because they were right.